green the grass is over there, you belong here with us.
We're gonna get Chris back.
You met your own self from a parallel dimension? You're wearing his clothes?
You think I bought this? That's painful.
All right, so let us talk about the full second season. We don't know at the moment if there'll be a third, but more on that later, of Peacemaker, courtesy of Warner Brothers and DC Studios, and of course James Gunn. We really had to talk about James Gunn and this dish or dishes that he's been cooking ever since he got on board and kickstarted his whole DCU thing, right? So yeah, we talked about the first half of the season here, so pretty much we'll just kind of just mention what happens in the second half, and then we'll just give like a full overview of the season itself, and we will get into some spoilers. Not too much though, because I want people to go in and be surprised as well, right? But there's a lot to take away from this season, but I don't want to spend too long on spoilers.
There's one big shoe drop that I think a lot of people called pretty early on. And I was like, yeah, that probably gonna happen. And then they kind of don't do anything with it. But then that is what it's not about. Like a lot of people don't really care for the ending, the finale. And I was like, yeah, it is. I get it. I understand where you're coming from. It is a little anticlimactic. But then to me, that is not what the season about or Peacemaker about. Like I don't really get that. And it felt like just more like a workable, denouement, right? Just a nice epilogue that finishes off a good character arc. So that's why we not getting a Peacemaker season 3 is not a big deal for me, my humble opinion. Because where it ends is like, yeah, okay, this works and it's a good way to like leverage off all the other like the rest of the DCU, hopefully, right? And it had some little kerfuffle over like, well, people saying Superman did make money or it in the red, and like, well, that is not the evidence that you the key. I think it's I forget which newspaper put out an article. And some people was making a big deal out of this. But like, not really. Like, it didn't really make that a thing. So like, the ECU will continue for the most part. At least Warner Brothers seem to be leveraging or leaning into it as much as they can. All things considered. So yeah, I don't know. This was like the big shoe drop. I suppose we could spoil that, which is
Well, before we get to the shoe drops / spoilers, I'll just do like a quick summary of what happened in the second half, right? So where episode 5 to 8 kicks off. Basically Chris is back in his home world now, because from the first half he was just experiencing life in this altered dimension, right, courtesy of this whole quantum dimension doorway thing that he has access to, right? And there there's a hardcore that actually is in love with Chris, even though there's this sort of like love triangle thing going on with Rick Flag Jr., who is still alive in that world, right? And as we mentioned earlier, Chris's brother Keith is alive, and he's a big man in this world too. Also, his father is alive, and seemingly not a racist like he was in the first season, but more on that in a bit, right? But Chris is back. He actually meets up with Harcourt, but Harcourt strikes his deal with Rick Flag Sr., who kind of wants to pretty much get, bust Chris's throat, because, the man killed his son, right, in the Suicide Squad movie, right? So, August and the team show up, and, Chris becomes aware of what's going on. But through some circumstances, he's captured. Rick Flag really goes in on him, but then eventually he's released on bail. I'm not going to say how that happens, but it makes for a really funny joke. And then at this time, Chris is just like, he just feels defeated because, he really wanted to find out from Harcourt, if their time together really meant anything. And she's like, no. But that's just because, she is just dealing with a lot of internal shit as well.
Yeah, right. That and we learned that, Harcourt was in a relationship with Rick
Flag Jr., right? Which was revealed in the first half, right? But long story short, he actually returns to that altered dimension, and he take it that everything is good, but then he take it everything is good, right? So of course, his friends, like Adebayo, Economos, boy Vigilante, and even Harcourt as well, they go into that dimension as well, trying to get Chris back. And then Chris learns the really dark truth about what this dimension is about.
Oh, we learned that
And
right. We learned that
yeah,
right. Right.
well,
But okay. So I thought the episode where he left, right? That could be an allusion to like probably like committing suicide because like he leaves a note and then he goes to a place that they can't return, that kind of stuff. No? And it was like,
all right.
and clearly, it lead into a conceit of depression. You could argue for. And then right, I forget what's the character who is always eating Cheetos, the Filipino fella. What's his name
Or
again?
Judo Master, yeah.
Judo Master, thank you. Right. This character.
All right,
Like
yes,
you
yes.
follow him
He goes as well too. I forgot to mention that.
Yeah, we follow him across, right? And then we go across and then we find out the big truth about what's going on.
Yeah.
And the gun, okay, so on the one hand, I listen, I really like this DC nonsense, but I kind of applaud Gun for avoiding catering to that kind of stuff. Because I really thought we would get Urtex. Like everybody saying Urtex or everybody saying Nazi world, because everybody like clocked this from since when Chris went across the first time. It's like, oh yeah, it have no people of color, no black people, no nothing.
I know what's so funny. Well, two things. One, I did not even pick up on that. When I recapped those first episodes, I pick up on that. No.
I didn't pick up on it. Yeah, I didn't pick up on it either. Originally, I was like, and then when somebody mentioned, it's like, all right, I suppose maybe, and if they go through that, that'll be kind of cool. And then yeah, they finally drop the shoe, but then they didn't really make it about that ultimately. Like, because I really thought that it's gonna be about that, and then they had to fight back all these Nazis or kill off blow up the alternate Nazi Argus or something like that. And I thought it was going to do the Urtex thing. So in Urtex, you have an alternate reality where the Justice League is the bad guys, but then you have like a bunch of good guys. I think Lady Liberty and a guy called Uncle Sam. So in my head, I was doing all this like nerd shit because remember Chris killed a bunch of them in the beginning. The parallel I forget the name. The Sons of Liberty or something like that.
Yeah, well, in the first half, yeah.
Right. So I thought we would have seen the Sons of Liberty and then we would have seen their leadership and it would have be like alternate versions of Economos or something like that. And I really thought that, we got to get like a Jack Economos as Uncle Sam or something like that. Like I really thought that's where it was going. And that didn't happen. It ultimately wasn't about that.
But quick question. Well, this stuff that you mentioned, because okay, so forgive me, folks. I've said this time and time again. I'm not like a DC nerd, right? So like I am familiar with the term Earth-X from incarnations of it, maybe through like movies, like animated movies, but like I can't really articulate what went down in those story arcs. So I remember you mentioned that before the whole Earth-X stuff. So yeah.
No, they mentioned right. So we saw Urtex actually in the Arrowverse, right? Remember that was one of the crisis events, right?
Oh,
where
okay,
they had where they had to fight the evil versions of Tenet. All of them was evil versions of. So it had an evil Supergirl, basically a Nazi Supergirl and a Nazi Arrow. I forget what it was. But it was alright. Like it came and went to the school fight in a church. It's kind of cool. But then they had to fight them, and I thought they tried to backdoor pilot a couple characters, and all of that fall flat. Anyway, moving on. It's basically like, the Nazis won World War II, so that's it. And they kind of didn't really waste time to try to explore that or get into that concept because we didn't see much of it. And if you think about it, like the world we live in right now is kind of the Nazis winning in some ways because like America caters to a lot of that, and American history is kind of Nazi history borrowed from American history. You could get into all that history, but the point is, they didn't really explore this concept. But in the comic, Earth-X is really the Justice League being Nazis. And you have an alternate American group who had to fight them. And one of the leaders is a guy called Uncle Sam, right? Or he calls himself Uncle Sam as a conceit. And he's like the main hero of that narrative. Like Superman, they have an evil Superman who get Nazi. And it's a whole thing. They don't know how to do that. Like everybody thought that David Cornsworth would show up as Nazi Superman. It's like, no, that's not going to happen. Like, all right, fine. But then we get a great cameo.
Yes, Lex boy in episode 6. Boy, I was like, what?
Yeah.
And no lie. All right, I'll put it like this, right? So I wasn't watching this weekly, right? But ever so often when I go on X, I would see people spoil things, for example. So make little hints of what went down before, right? And I swear, like somebody mentioned something along the line of Lex or some character from Superman showing up, but I was really taking it on. So yeah, when episode 6 dropped, I was surprised to the man show up. But what was even more interesting, right, is as Rick Flag Sr. who goes into Belle Reve and has this visitation session with him. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And that kind of builds something very intriguing for me, in terms of this show here and what we might see going forward.
Right. Yeah, and well, it is like the impetus to have Lex come out. So it looked like he make a little deal. You ought to be in the prison. You talk about some prison sex stuff that you just traumatized him, which was kind of funny. They do that, and then they get the guy who was also the other guy from from Man of Steel, the guy who was helping him out, who was also the expert in quantum shenanigans thing, to how to like, he's the expert that Lex hired to build the place for him.
Oh, that guy was from Man of Steel. Okay,
Not Man of Steel,
no,
in
Superman.
Superman.
Oh, he was.
Superman
I was trying to remember with if like I was trying to remember if he was in the film or not. Right? It's not to say
Yeah. He was there. He was there in the little office with Lex. He's the one who Mr. Turek tell get out of the way, I'm the goddamn Mr. Turek. That guy.
Oh,
It's
okay,
like-
okay. Well, that
Yeah,
just
but
goes to
so
show that just goes to show that I really need to rewatch Superman. I only saw that
Right.
once. You know.
Yeah. So it's just that. It's just like a quick character. I had to look on the wiki to find out who his name was. I forget his name. They mentioned the name in the show. It's like he's an MIT guy who's super expert, and his whole expertise is looking for like quantum shenanigans, portal bullshit. No? Because remember this portal stuff. They said that paid software because a lot of people think this portal stuff might be lead to dark side or whatever it is. No, they think it's some dark side shenanigans. No, because what it is, it's not. It's a boom tube. No, that everybody think. That's the theory. And then a lot of fan theory going off on, Peacemaker, the helmet is an alien helmet. So the helmet is really this character helmet because it looks just like his helmet.
Oh, oh gosh. That dude, the New Gods, it's New Gods, right?
New Gods fellow.
But which
Dark
character?
Side Son.
Yeah, I can't
It's a
remember.
Dark Side Son. Or Orion.
Orion, that's it. Yes.
Yeah.
I just
So
remember that
everybody-
from GLU for some reason. Yeah.
Right, yeah. He's a character in jail. Right. He is actually now one of my favorite episodes of Superman the animated series, actually. Apocalypse Now. He comes to warn Earth about things.
Oh, okay.
about
I really need to rewatch that episode though. I haven't seen that.
No, that episode goated Dread. Yeah, that episode absolutely goated Dread. Like that great two-parter is like they nail the Jack Kirby look at everything real hard. Anyway, so everybody think it's a lot of that, and we might get that maybe involving like boom tube multiverse stuff maybe. So like, all right, fine, and they set up all of that. But then the ultimate core of this, the emotional core of this, is why this works. I think that episode 7 is so good though. That was excellent. Like,
it is. Especially how they like bring Chris's family back into the mix. Like literally kind of have them warring with each other. That was amazing.
Yeah, because the big shoe drop, you're thinking it would be about that, and then Adebayo's being chased by everybody in the neighborhood, including the brother. But then she escapes by Juno Massa helping out. They come back home, and then all of them go back to the thing. And then, like, when police come and push come to shove, and you find out, the father not that bad. Well, as Blue Dragon, not he's still part of the system, but he's not like an outright hateful person, like And from his perspective, when he saw White Dragon, he thought our world was the nightmare world. Which is interesting to hear. Like, is that now? And he gets it that interesting kind of moral argument. And I don't know, like, if a lot of people get into the James Gunn, like if James Gunn try to like downplay the aspect of this world or not. And it's like, no, it's just a character work. Like, it's like in any data to be a world, and that's why I appreciate for it was. And then Chris just completely crash out, like with our last scene involving the brother, right? And I thought that was excellent acting by John Cena. For me, it was
I'm gonna talk about his acting, but I'm gonna talk about his acting.
It was a final crescendo but a nadir for his emotional arc, and it totally worked. And then he done like that he really reached a low point there with our whole partner. And I thought it was really, really excellent stuff. And then the final episode was just a soft like acceptance of the situation, and then you accept it as it is and you move on. They're not gonna go and invade and fight a war against Nazis or anything. That don't make any sense. Like, I like that. Like that works as a character beat. And I know a lot of people are disappointed with the ending. And if anything, it shouldn't have been as long as it was, maybe. Or they could have like make episode 7 part of this, so it could have been one longer episode instead, and then truncate that a little bit. That would have been fine, maybe. I'm giving that it's only 8 episodes, because a lot of people say it would have been a perfect 8 episode in 12 episodes, and then you have a big final battle against the Nazis. But that won't have worked. Like, again, I like it for it was. Like, I get it. I understand why people were disappointed with it.
Yeah,
but
I just have like it may increase when I get to my review, but I just have one gripe. Well, glaring major gripe with that particular episode, but I'll get to that in a bit.
I can understand why people have an issue with this, right? And at the end, you could say is the okay. So shout out to this creator, a film reviewer I was really following. He's always have like a lot of solid takes. A guy called Darren Mooney. He had a great point about the metaphor of the internet. How Superman was about the internet, and then Peacemaker is about the internet and the idea of isolation on the internet. And it's like, I understand, where they're coming from and the conceits of it and so on. So with that premise, and I still think Gondo jam. right? As I say, as make the joke, the only time gun does jam is when you have the needle drops, right? Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Like to me, I still think this was excellent. The finale was it was very personal. Like
Mhm.
that's why it worked.
Yeah,
It's just
right.
him. This is James Gunn's attempt to like what healing looks like emotionally. Like yeah, you had to do the big fight and it's a big comic book movie and thing. But like for somebody like Peacemaker, who's not like part of this bigger world and shouldn't be. Like when you think about it, he should not be. He should not be part of this. Leave that to the actual powerful people. And what if you get into the fight, you get into the fight. But where they end off Peacemaker, and I thought it was a good ending to end this off as his character, but also a great jumping off point for the rest of the DCU because they set up so much. And yeah, it's good stuff. Look, I want the goofy bullshit. I want the goofy bullshit of the guy flying and the space lasers and you're fighting Darkseid. I want to see that. I want the new God stuff. I want whatever James Gunn gonna do with it or whatever we're gonna do with Green Lanterns or whatever. Right? But this is solid stuff. Right? This is solid stuff and it's solid character stuff that I think mostly works. Right? At worst, I'll say this is like the Iron Man 3 of the DCU. Like it's how Iron Man 3 was a similar, Tony having to deal with his trauma, but then he kind of
Mhm.
move on from being Iron Man
Good point. Yeah.
and then you put him in a larger world and then build up that character beat and then you give him another arc later. But this I think that's how I feel about this. Like however you feel about Iron Man 3, which is a movie I defend, I still defend Iron Man 3. I feel about this. It's the same thing. They try to do something somewhat mature, and I think it mostly works back and I totally understand anybody who don't like it. I get it. Like I totally understand where you're coming from with respect to that. I respect. I don't agree, but I respect your opinion. It's just that. Yeah, I thought this was good. I enjoyed. I enjoyed for what it was. Yeah, that's it.
All right. So, I agree with you for the most part, man. Just to get to the full season as a whole, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I did not expect to enjoy it
Yeah,
as much as I did, right? Because I would admit, even with the first half that we covered before, I was a little like skeptical, of, like in terms of the direction of the show. Because like, all right, we getting very emotional and very personal with Peacemaker. Like, what's going on? Why is Chris so somber all the time? Why is he like down in the dumps all the time and all that kind of stuff? Like it just felt like just a change of tone, you know what I mean, from the last season, right? And I was a little iffy, like I wasn't sure where it was gonna go, right? But then, I actually like recapped those first 4 episodes and then jumped into the last 4. And yeah, just as a whole, it just flowed very naturally though, you know what I mean, in terms of just the character growth. And that to me is like the key aspect of this season, character growth. Everybody that's significant to the story, you really see their characters grow over time, and it makes a lot of sense, right? I think in the case of Peacemaker, it makes perfect sense because remember in the Suicide Squad movie, right, we're taking a guy who ultimately became he started off as an anti-hero, then became a
right.
villain, right? And then, we wasn't really thinking about it at the time. It's like, okay, we're going to get that series, all right? And at the time, I was thinking, oh, well, it's because, Cena is, a big,
Right.
he growing now, I would say he's going through another phase of his acting career, right? So, all right, we're going to give him a series. Okay, that's really interesting, right? But yeah, I mean, that there poses a big challenge, right? You have to take this villainous, in quotes, character and give him his own show. He had to become a hero, all right? So that's why you get all the traumatic stuff and all the, all that stuff involving his past and whatnot. So, like, his growth have to feel logical. It had to feel earned, right? And I think that, yeah, from season 1 to 2 here, yeah, it does feel earned. It feels very logical. Like this is how somebody like he would grow over time, right? With from the loss and the pain, trying to drown it in drugs and sex, all that kind of stuff, and not working. He sees this opportunity with Hardcore, but he's not sure if it's working. And it just feels like
Right.
life is just beating him down. It's like, hey, here's this place where I am loved. I feel like I belong here, right? So I love the whole aspect of him being part of this top trio, team of superheroes, and he's being respected and loved by people in, this town, right? But then, is the harsh reality that, oh, actually is this Nazi version of, that
Right.
same town or whatnot,
High
right?
price to be. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly, right? So it feels logical, right? So let me just get to the all right. So I'll get to the final episode, and then I'll just kind of go back to talking about what I really appreciate about this season here, right? So the one gripe that I had with the final episode, right, is not so much the length, right? But there's this, as we get into the spoilers here, you've been warned. There's a segment involving Rick Flag Sr. going into various dimensions, trying to find a
Right.
specific spot to put metahumans. So you want to make like this metahuman prison. That makes sense.
Right.
And how it ties back
Right.
to Lex, that makes sense too. I love
Yeah.
how Rick
Well,
Flag Senior was framing it like, oh, you know what, Lex helping we out. So one hand, we just kind of listen, like at the end of the day, we don't like each other, but listen, if this can kind of help we out in our respective ways, fine. So I like how you're going about with it, right? But that's just
I'll
quick
say-
point I want to mention.
Yeah.
So the one gripe that I had though is there's a segment, even though I fucks with that song and that rock song, especially when you hear it and the chorus, because the chorus is just so over the top and so crass, but it works, right? But yeah, it's involving Rick Flag's team and they go into various dimensions, and there's one where it's like these little munchkin characters, but they're kind of cannibalistic and
Right.
they're kind of eating
Yeah, yeah.
at the humans. I was like, all right, I get the joke, but it running way too
Yeah,
long. It running way too long, and
Right.
then it just kind of leads to this montage of, oh, we're gonna try this dimension and blah blah blah.
Yeah,
It's
I
like,
felt,
all right, they could
I
have
felt this
shortened that down a little bit.
Yeah, this stuff could have cut, to be honest. Like, just edit what we're doing and just make it like a quick montage, as you say. But my only there's another major I'll say a valid complaint too is that this Red Flag doesn't feel like the same character from Creature Commandos.
From
feels like a different person.
yes, that
Yeah, feels like a
is
very
true.
different
That is true.
Yeah, like a very, very different person. Like, his arc is kind of iffy. Like, again, they could give it future stuff, so I don't really have a problem with it as it is. But like, his character is not handled well.
Alright, I'll
given the
put
ball
like
scenario.
this. It's not so much that it wasn't handled well, in my opinion. It feels like maybe there was some moment that was taken out or probably could have been added as a flashback or some sort, where we could have really understand, okay, this is the impetus. This is why Rick Flag Sr. is so hell-bent on exacting his revenge on Chris. It just sort of, it's like as he brought into the show, it's like, all right, I gotta get rid of Chris. Like, I wish that there was some point between Creature Commandos / Superman and this show, where it's like, all right, now I know what I need to do. I have this opportunity here. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna get back at Chris. It just feels sudden, in my opinion. But yeah, go on.
Yeah. Because the entire cell was just, oh well, he killed his son and he really liked his son. That was it, and so that's how I only read the whole thing. And then because of Waller, he had to play it a certain way, so he didn't like that. That's how I felt. So it's like, all right, I mean, I suppose you hate Chris, but like, that was established properly. Yeah, as I say, it could have been established better, maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
it should have. It should have.
I don't think it's handled particularly well.
Yeah. However, the heel turn that he does at the end, where he finds that one place and throws Chris in it, I thought made perfect sense. I thought that was a great punchline to what they was building up from the beginning. I saw the episode Friday, that's a few days ago, right? And I actually went up on X after I watched that episode, and yeah, people was like, oh, I don't understand, I don't like how Rick did that, like this is not the same Rick, blah blah blah. Like, no, that actually was Rick. They set up from the start. Like, you think just because you see him like punching at like just beating the shit out of Chris in episode 5, right? Yeah, episode 5, sorry. Yeah, all of a sudden that's a shock to you. No, they set it up from the start. Like, the man really want to get rid of Chris. Period. Point blank period. I just felt like there should have been a moment where it's like, all right, this is the decision I need to make. Because remember, you had to take into account that Creature Commandos happened, right? It just almost felt like, and even he kind of mentions as, oh yeah, by the way, that happened. I went to that country and that happened, and I blame Waller for that too. You know what I mean? So you would think that he would have go after Waller first. I was like, nah, well, Waller get ousted, so I just gonna set my sights on Chris. But so yes, you could have handled that, right? But yeah, people was kind of like, some people were kind of not turned off, but iffy about the heel turns. Like, no, that makes sense. Like, the man, again, he really wanted to kill this guy, for lack of a better term, right? So yeah, the ending to me worked, right? Yes, it's a downer of an ending, but not so much to me, right? But this to me is the beauty of what James was doing with the show here, right? Because I love the let's just say the climatic montage, right? Which is set to that Foxy Shazam song, Oh Lord, which, yes, grew on me. It took a while. It grew on me. The song is an absolute earworm, but hearing that song play that moment, it's like the perfect
that Julian is such
Julian, especially it is very is very Queen inspired, and especially like the lead singer. Yeah, he is that energy, is that Queen Bohemian Rhapsody, spirit energy, right? But yeah, boy, what was I gonna say, right? Yes, so that montage works perfectly. It feels like when I'll throw an example, it reminds me of the series finale of The Wire, where the original version of I think the name of the song is "Keep the Devil in the Hole." Yeah, it plays there, and it just kind of meant to just say yes, the show is officially done now. That's what it is, right? So I love how it's appropriate, like it feels deserved, but it's also deceptive at the same time. Okay, yeah, it's Chris like, yes, I made it, I get through, and everything is gonna be happy, and I'm moving forward. But in the back of my mind, I was like, nah, James gonna come with a gut punch, I know it, I know he not gonna just end the show like that. I already know that, right? Yeah, I love how it's set up so well with the song and it plays in its entirety as well. I think everything is fine, right? For one thing, I love where Adebayo's character, or let's just say Leota's character, is right now, where she is the founder of Checkmate. I had to do some wiki, and it's like, oh, that's actually part of DC.
Right,
Okay,
right. But that's the thing. So they everybody thinking how well they'll call the show Waller, because remember, well, she got married and changed her name, so she probably will get divorced and go back to Waller now, and so Waller is about her. And it makes sense because she's like, I find she's a star. I really, really like Danielle Brooks now. I find she's great.
Who doesn't like Danielle Brooks, man? I mean, I love this since Orange is the New Black. In Orange is the New Black, sorry.
But she's like really good in this though. So like I could see her like having her just her and Viola Davis bounce off each other and just because sure about that, with them probably running or some back and forth involving Checkmate and slash Cadmus, however it is excellent stuff. I really hope they do something like that.
Yeah, and about her quickly, right? I love that moment where she's talking to her, well, I guess now ex-wife, right? That back and forth about, careers and goals and whatnot. Boy, that was a powerful scene, just the emotion that was in it, boy. I felt every second of that. I love that, right? And yeah, it just feels very cathartic as well, right? So when she actually finds his agency, it makes sense as well, right? And just the mere fact that she brought in Sasha Bordeaux, I think that's her name, and Tim Meadows, who I thought was gonna annoy me, but he's just flat out hilarious in this. It makes sense.
Tim Meadows is so funny in this season.
Boy, that bird blindness thing is like at first I thought it was like some kind of shipping bit, but it pays off with the whole moment with Eagly. I love that. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's the thing, is that joke you're thinking, because it's straight up like his character from Walk Hard, eh? Straight up.
That's true. You're right.
Yeah. But like they make it work, right? Like he is really funny in this though. And I wouldn't mind if I see more Tim Meadows, because he's really good at this.
Yeah, and let's run through quickly, right? Yeah, speaking of Eagly, boy, Eagly, I fucks with that bird so much. Yeah, those moments with him and Michael Rooker, who was in the last review, was so goddamn hilarious, right? But the payoff with that with him, can assume that Eagly is the primal bird, at least in this case, in this scenario. So I thought that absolutely worked. That was so badass in my opinion. But I will not spoil the moment, but it was badass.
Yeah, so a lot of people think that's involving like the whole green stuff involving animals, like the red and the green. Okay, so in the DC over Metaverse kind of stuff, they have colors, and colors represent something, but also represent another thing. So you have the green, which is represent plants, but also like Green Lantern Hope, and there's a whole general theme for like a universe now. But then you have the red, and the red represents animals. So I'm like, oh, that's the red they tap it into. We're not sure what's going on. It's possible. Again, I don't want to. Again, I'll try to like not to comic nerd this, because I don't think James Gunn is that kind of guy. Like he'll pull from comics, but like that's not what it's about. So you don't want to get into that. But like, I hope is that like all I'll say is that, because like he could do all this shit. Like what the hell? It's like it's real hard to. It's like I would.
Yeah. So that's just a few things for you, and then we'll wrap up here, right? So also just going back to characters, right? Harcourt's arc though absolutely work as well, right? So I just love the fact that she has trouble just expressing herself, just being vulnerable. She feels that she has to be tough internally and externally, right? So at first I was like real iffy about why you going back to the same bar and picking fights, right? But yeah, it just kind of works as this kind of release for her, you know what I mean? Because she just can't deal with her own emotions, right? And it's for a man like Chris to kind of call out on that, though. That was really amazing as well, right? But yeah, the payoff with it was worth it, where she kind of reveals like, yes, you know, there was something. Because they just keep hinting at it all through the season with this whole issue with the boat thing, right? And you know, at first, like in my head, I was thinking, oh, it's something sexual that took place, right? But I like that in the last episode, you realize, oh no, it was just a simple little get together. You know, they went on this party boat, a rock band was playing, and they just had one dance and a kiss, and that was it. That was it. Simple as that. And that was the whole impetus of their you know, that's their relationship being so strained, you know. Where just they're thinking that it's something way more intimate now. And they actually realize, no, it's something very nice, very sweet, right? So I love that moment where you actually see exactly what's going on, right? But yeah, ultimately though, who really shines in this though is Chris. And boy, I can't believe I've seen this thread. I make the joke of it, right? Make the joke of this on Facebook. Yeah, John Cena retirement tour apparently passed through this show as well, boy. Because yeah, boy, this man come to grace us on the screen for one last time, right? But yeah, boy, John really stepped up to the table with this. Okay, in the first one, it's not like he wasn't acting there, but you know, he was playing the 80s rock loving man, you know, man child, right? That was what he was playing, right? You know, it was an extension of who he played in the Suicide Squad, right? In that case, in the first season, there was more guilt in his head. It's like, oh shit, like, you know, Rick Flag Jr., I killed the man, and oh gosh, and then you learn about Keaton, it's like, oh my god, and then afterwards when you kill the father, it's like, oh shit, right? And it's just how that carries across in the second season, and how it just burns him and burns him and burns him even more, boy. But you really felt it, right? Even the way how he tries to handle it, the way how he tries to subdue the pain, but he lets it out, and sometimes it may seem kind of childish. Sometimes it seems very, you know, like the man just really can't take, you know, he really can't like control his own emotions, right? Yeah, boy, those moments absolutely worked, right? Like, I'm not saying this an Oscar-winning performance, right? But like, boy, this kind of bordering on Emmy, right? Like, I was like, what? This man really stepped up. Yeah, I feel like this man, like in secret, like the man was watching what The Rock was doing with the smashing machine and saying, here's what. Oh, you could do like do your little acting thing and, you know, get a little Oscar buzz. All right, okay, I could do the same thing, but I could get Emmy buzz, right? So yeah, boy, like see, like I would say this to me is like a defining moment as far as John Cena's acting goes. Because yeah, believe it or not, this man has been acting since what, like just to touch on it quickly, since the Marine Dread, which came on in the early 2000s, I'll never forget seeing that in cinema and thinking that was like borderline trash.
Yeah, that was terrible.
It was terrible. It was terrible, right? Okay. But yeah, but I'm saying this because like his acting trajectory didn't grow as fast as Dwayne's own did, right? Yeah, Dwayne was just kept at it. He just kept at it, and he just got bigger and better roles, right? So that's why he was able to like leave wrestling for a long period of time, do the acting thing, get successful, and then kind of come back and forth and you know, whatever, you know what I mean? But Cena just kind of had, you know, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, right? But here's like, yeah, boy, like, listen, my wrestling retirement tour almost done. So here's what, like, if this is the moment for me to show, listen, I gotta go all in on acting going forward, you know, this is the show. This is the season that kind of defined that for me. I thought this actor was excellent, right? Last point I'll make before we wrap up here, right? So as far as the story and what James Gunn was going for, right? What I love, I should say, is that James was just able to do a lot with the characters and just really push the characters to like their emotional limits, right? Similar to what he did with Guardians Volume 2 and to extend Volume 3, right? You know, he really puts them in the dark though and really like see, you know, just for him to see how these characters come out of it, right? So I love how he did that, right? But I love that, you know, as you mentioned, you know, people were speculating this thing about Earth X and whatnot, right? Yeah, I mean, he could have go off the rails and say, here's what I want to have this superheroic extravaganza explosion in the penultimate episode and, you know, all that kind of stuff. But I like that it just sort of zeroes in on Chris's family and the chaos that takes place when the police show up at the house and all that kind of stuff, right? Because yes, we could have had this explosive climax and finale. It was like, no, this is not the story I want to tell. The movies, when when I have bigger budgets, yes, I could go insane, right? You saw that with Superman, but this one is more emotionally driven. It's more toned down by my standards. So I love that he stuck to that. I know that there will be fans who'll be like, but no, but I wanted it to be better. And what, there wasn't much action in the finale. This was a letdown for me, blah, blah, blah. But like, no, that's not what he's going for. And I appreciate that, right? I feel like if I just give it a couple, like if I think about that, I'd be like, we still could have gotten this thing and that thing, but I like how restrained he was with this season and this show as a whole, right? And as far as where it ends, I like that it is this great denouement where, yes, you could see this character again in the future, but as he say, there's a possibility that there may not be a season 3. Don't worry about it. He could come back, don't worry, right? Because, I mean, if Rick Flag Sr. could transition from from live action to cartoon to live action again, then yeah, I mean, 9 times out of 10, there's a chance that we'll see Chris again. It's just how we will see it and what will come out of it, him being in this dimension and whatnot, right? So, yeah, like you, I could understand people being disappointed by the finale and disappointed by the season as a whole, because I know some people's like, well, yeah, this show is just all emotional and it's also all about character growth and not enough action in it, and it's Chris being all sad and shit. Like, no, that's not the point. It's really to justify his transition to being a hero. That's what it is. Okay, yeah, you can't just give this man a show and just think, oh, it's supposed to erase everything that we saw in the Suicide Squad. No, this is what the show is about, to kind of show that transition from the Suicide Squad to the show here. And that's really what it's about. I thought that for the most part, yeah, James did a solid job with this, right? And yeah, I mean, as far as just like character growth, again, just showing that character grow over time though, and yeah, just the interactions with him and the other characters as well, and you really see why they work as a family. Yeah, boy, this man really nailed it. Like, dude was cooking. Dude was absolutely cooking, right? So yeah, I think I talked long enough. But yeah, this is one of the best shows of the year. And this show as a whole, because I'm treating this as 2 seasons right now, is one of the best, I would say, DC outputs we've gotten in a long while, right? As far as TV shows go. So yeah, as far as this season goes, I'm gonna give this a light 4.5 out of 5. As far as the show goes, I'm gonna give this a decent 4.5 out of 5. This was much better than it needed to be. Because yeah, again, at first you thinking, okay, a Peacemaker show, all right, what are you gonna do with that? Like, all right, it's a star vehicle for Cena, all right, okay, but what else, right? But yeah, James was able to find really creative and very emotionally driven ways to make these characters matter. Like, you actually care about everybody in the show, right? And yes, the character growth of everyone made sense to me, you know what I mean? Especially even Rick Flag Sr., which I know a lot of people was like kind of turned off by kind of taken aback, by the heel turn that he did near the end. It's like, no, that was all justified. It makes sense to me, right? But yeah, I would say for the uninitiated, don't go in expecting this big extravaganza like what Superman was. I like how distinct this show is from Superman, and even though they are part of the same world, and that's kind of what we want in the end of the day, right? So yeah, man. Whatever we get next, I'm ready for it. I do hope to see Chris again, and yeah, I mean, if ever we get a 3rd season, okay, cool. I'm ready for it, but I don't need one right now. I think like these 2 seasons really work for what they are, and I think the next time that we see Chris Smith, aka Peacemaker, will be in some upcoming movie, wherever it is, right? But yeah, hands down, one of the best seasons of a TV show I've seen this year, and yeah, one of the best shows I have seen from DC in a long while, and that's all I have to say. So Ricardo, your final thoughts, rating on the season and the show as a whole.
Yeah, written like a 8 out of 10. I mean, I understand why people, was disappointed with the thing, but I dug it for what it was. As I said, compare it to Iron Man 3, you could have done it well, but I like it where it was. I felt the execution could have been a little better, because mostly my main complaint is that it's just this was a little too long, the finale, or at least that it could have been edited a little better, but that's about it. But yeah, I dug it for what it was. Again, from a character perspective, it really works for me. At least Chris's journey. And yeah, for the most part, I had no problems with it. Yeah, I wanted to see Economos as Uncle Sam or whatever, but that you don't need all of that. You could move on. It's kind of like with uh Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. The people wanted more, but we just ended up getting a smaller story, and that was like a good enough in my opinion. So it worked. I mean, it's nice about it. Right, 8 out of 10 for me. could have. I personally wanted more because DC thing, but given James Gunn's track record and what he's doing, it would be better off for doing it in the movies. This as his character is fine. They can move on from here. So yeah, I enjoyed that.
Right. And, lastly, about the show as a whole, because again, I'm treating this as the second and final season, in quotes, right? So, your thoughts on the show as a whole, What do you think?
Yeah, no, yeah. The show as a whole, like the first season was great for what it was on its arc. I had nothing to add to that because this adds on to that from especially with with the father and see the brother a second time and what was going on with that. So that's the full arc here. I mean, it had nothing, to me the second season addresses all of the things from the first season in many ways. At least Chris's major arc and what's going on with that. So that's it. Yeah. Overall, again, whole show still 8 out of 10. Nothing major change because second season builds on that so well. I think. At least Chris's journey. So it works. I think most of this works. I had very few major issues with it.